You published the book in October, and you wrote a lot about Russia, Ukraine, China, and Taiwan. So I'd like you to just kind of walk through what you wrote in the book and how that's so pertinent to the current war.
There are actually three ways, in my view, three key points in the book, in my view, that in hindsight, were actually a little bit ahead of their time when I wrote the book, that are especially relevant in the context of the Russia-Ukraine war. The first fact is that my book, and as hinted in the title of the book, is premised on this idea that the United States, democracies, chiefly the United States, and autocracies, chiefly China, are in what I call a gray war, where you have China on the one hand that is effectively aiding and abetting, where you have China on the one hand that is effectively aiding and abetting Russia, and you have the United States along with its European allies that is aiding very, very aggressively the Ukrainian resistance against Russia's invasion of that country. The reason that acknowledging and coming to terms with the fact that we are in a gray or cold war is incredibly important, because I think that it's from that premise that you start to accept a lot of the actions needed in order to avoid that Cold War to become a hot war. The second point is the basic idea that the future of American deterrence means shifting from being the world's policeman to being the arsenal of democracy. Much like an information network, alliance networks are more resilient when they're decentralized rather than when they're centralized in a single point of failure. If we want to avoid a situation where Russia and China call America's bluff, it is in the American interest to make sure that American allies are well equipped to resist an aggression. The third and last point is that is highlighted both in the book as well as in the current ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, is the importance of supply chains. Supply chains ultimately are absolutely central and vital to both driving the outcome of the gray or cold war, as well as the back end front of that struggle. The reason is, if you control the internet at the hardware layer, you can compromise and control everything that runs on top of that network. We've seen so presciently in the current war in Ukraine how enormously independent Europe is on Russia's energy sector. I think today it's time the US started drawing the lesson of Europe's experience and started taking its own advice in the context of China and weaned itself off of America's dependence on Chinese supply chains. The dangers of America's reliance on China for nearly everything else and the vital role that Taiwan plays in the semiconductor supply chain, I think, is incredibly ripe for public debate.